can break the dark. A single spark ignites the heart. But if we turn when justice calls, the chains we forge will bind us all. When truth is silence, when lies take hold, the cost is freedom, the soul grows cold. No one stands tall while another must fall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, defending every voice, defending every right. For the moment we falter, the moment we stall, we lose our own freedom when we let others fall. You can't stand free while others kneel. When justice fades, it's freedom they steal. An innocent condemned, a crime unspoken, and with it the bond of liberty is broken. No tyrant rules without our consent. Oppression thrives where silence is spent. Stand for the weak, the silence is small, or freedom will crumble for us all. We're mavericks of freedom, guardians of the light, fighting for the truth, for what is just and right. For the rights of one are the rights of all. We rise or we fall by answering the call. Even those we may oppose deserve the rights we all uphold. For if we deny them what is fair, we build our own prison in despair. The fight's not easy, it never will be, but justice for one is the key to be free. We stand as mavericks, together we strive, defending the rights that keep freedom alive. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, upholding every truth, protecting every right. When one is oppressed, we're all in the thrall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. So take a stand, let your courage rise. Defend the truth, don't compromise. For the soul of the world, the writing's on the wall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for
Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Apparently, we're just not thankful enough. Canadians, so selfish, ripping off the United States. It's just awful. Just not grateful enough. Doug Ford, Ontario Premier, meeting with Howard Lutnick to talk about those tariffs. And, Lutnick's got to put Ford in his place. He's got to beat him down. So he appears on Fox News today and says that Canada, all you Canadians, all of us, my fellow Canadians, we're just not thankful enough. The whole 51st state thing, that's just a joke. Don't take that seriously. Don't worry about it. You know what? I'll tell you this too. There's a nuclear submarine in Halifax Harbor tonight. French. A French nuclear submarine in the harbor in Halifax tonight. Don't worry about it, Donald. It's nothing to see there either. It's nothing. Don't you worry about that. Everything's just going to be just fine. We'll see how the tariff war works out, and we'll talk about it tonight, as well as the ceasefire that Putin wants but doesn't want. And my goodness, how confusing it is when the Russian leader rejects a ceasefire deal but wants it at the same time. It's amazing how language works and how confusing things can get so quickly when you use doublespeak.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Also tonight, Trudeau's farewell address. Maybe we'll start with that tonight. We're going to go to this meeting between the NATO leader and Donald Trump. We're going to go there. We're going to pick up this. We're going to get Doug Ford coming out of the meeting with Lutnick. Maybe should we start with? No, we're not going to have time. Okay, we'll come back to Trudeau. Hang on. We're going to come back to Trudeau, but let's go first to Doug Ford, Ontario Premier, meeting with Trade Secretary Howard Lutnick. Now, this all coming after Ford threatened to use he didn't see the 25% tariff on electricity in response to the tariffs coming from Trump. And Lutnick going into this meeting saying that little Doug Ford has learned his lesson. Yeah, I'm not so sure. I wouldn't get too cocky there, big guy. Here's Ford outside.
First of all,
here he goes.
Thank you so much. We've had a very, very productive meeting, obviously a very long one too. We know that we're very close partners for many, many years. We want to make sure we continue building on that relationship. We feel that the temperature is being lowered. We feel the temperature is being lowered. And we've also agreed that we're going to have another meeting next week, and I think it's going to be very productive as well. We want the best outcome for both countries. We're like a family. Sometimes there's tension between families, but that was an extremely productive meeting, and I just want to thank Secretary for the opportunity to go in there and stay this long and communicate. We shared a tremendous amount of views back and forth, and I'm feeling very positive, and I just look forward to reaching out again next week. But this, I can honestly.
Why do you say that? Why?
Well, because I feel and I keep saying we feel like the temperature's come down.
How so?
I'm not commenting on their behalf. We also know we're an extremely important trading partner, I'd say top tier in the world for the United States, and how we can continue working together to support each other. And I know it's still going to be moving forward, and we'll get there. But there'll always be bumps in the road, but it was very, very productive.
Premier, it would appear that
everything is still on, right?
I'm sorry?
Nothing has been stopped. There's still
No, but it was
threat?
very, yeah, there's, I don't call them the threats. We're having very productive conversations, and it turned out very, very well. And I just look forward to, again, continue communicating. Next week, we got a lot on the table back and forth, but it was very, very good, very civil, very going back and forth. So I just appreciate the opportunity. I'm grateful that we're able to do this rather than going back and forth on, tit for tat.
Premier, how do you take Commerce Secretary Lutnick at his word when he says something very different to his American audience when he appears on Fox News? Once again, he mocked Canada, he mocked you, he said that Donald Trump taught you a lesson and that's why you backed down. How do you deal with that type of tone when it's coming from the U.S.?
Well, I can't comment on Secretary Lutnick, what he says. All I know, first time we had an opportunity to sit right across from the table from him, look him square in the eyes, and had a great conversation. It was very positive. That's what I can tell you. It was very, very positive on both sides of the table there.
Time for one more, guys.
One more.
Is the energy surcharge
What are you
going
hoping
back
to
on?
achieve with this meeting today? What were you hoping to achieve?
You know, my years in business and years in government, I believe in building relationships. And I think we've come a long way in building this relationship. It's the first opportunity. I've talked to Secretary Lutnick before. Now, keep in mind, Secretary Lutnick is a brilliant business mind, a shrewd negotiator. And he's doing what's right for his country, and I'm doing what's right for my province and during our country. But let's continue on this conversation. But I'm leaving this meeting extremely positive. That's what I'm leaving.
So Premier,
does there need to be a federal election?
And this administration over the last 10 days or
They're
so.
very bright individuals, bright business peoples, and shrewd negotiators. But they're doing what I'm doing. I want to protect our country, our province. They want to protect their country as well.
Do you have a message for Mark Carney? Should he call an election?
Thank you, guys.
That's up to Mark Carney.
will your electricity export tariff remain paused, sir, until next week? Premier, Premier, will the export tariff be paused until next week?
Will the energy surcharge come back on?
Will you tariff electricity?
Will the energy surcharge...
So, I would say Doug Ford being very diplomatic, showing an extreme level of tolerance, and I have to give him a lot of credit for choosing his words very carefully and keeping his cool. Yeah, gotta admire that, especially after Lutnick appears on Fox News and talks like this.
Pretty big deal. Let me ask you about this. I want to play this because Doug Ford and you are about to meet, correct? The premier from Ontario. A lot of heated conversation going back and forth. I should point
Doug
out
Ford
to
is
people
coming,
that,
and the Minister of Finance is coming.
Okay,
so
great.
the central government is coming as well.
So Doug Ford was always a big Trump fan, but now he's saying that he feels that the United States has turned the guns on their closest ally. He says it's so disappointing. I'm sure you're going to hear some of this in a few minutes from him, that the U.S. is attacking the families of Canada, the food on their tables. But here, let's go to call for number one, the back and forth between President Trump today and Doug Ford. Watch.
We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything they have.
We're your largest customer. There's no one that buys more products off the United States than we do. You're going to be paying a lot more for everything right across the board because you can't get aluminum anywhere else. You only produce 16% of your aluminum. We ship in over 60%. So anything that has aluminum, you're going to pay more.
So he's saying that Americans are going to pay more and that Canada is one of our most important trading partners, which, has always been the case.
So you have to remember, Canada exists leaning on our economy. I mean, let's face it, cars used to be made in America. Why did Michigan's cars move to Canada to break out of the UAW? I mean, that's just unfair to American workers and American union workers. It's just, you finally have Donald Trump's got their back and is wondering why are cars made in Canada? Why are we doing all this business in Canada if they're not respectful, if they're not thankful, and they don't want to do it? Imagine a provincial leader, so like the equivalent of a governor, deciding that they're going to attack America and put a 25% increase on energy prices to teach Donald Trump a lesson. I guess what happened? He learned a lesson. We're going to come in and talk, but what should you expect? You should expect exactly what you heard President Trump said today. What are you doing for us? I know what we're doing for you, but what are you doing for us? And I think that's the right way to look at it. That's our president's way of looking at it, and that's what you should expect.
So why not just eliminate the tariffs between Canada and the United States? Is that a place that we can get to? Because I mean, it's mind-boggling. Like 25%. No, it's going to be 50%. No, we're back to 25%.
That would
why
be
not
true
just
if this was
eliminate all the
Fox.
tariffs?
That would be true if you were Fox Canada. That Fox Canada would like that, but Fox
I'm just
USA.
asking the question. So I heard President Trump moments ago say $200 million we send in aid essentially to Canada. So are we going to eliminate that? I mean, tell me what the starting points are. That's what I want to know.
The starting point is we care about America first. We care about American workers first. And we want to bring back those jobs to America. So we're going to bring back more and more jobs to America. We don't want to buy 60% of our aluminum from Canada. We want to bring it to America. We want the cars to America. We want to make America great first. Then we can worry about Canada. And that's the message. America first, then we worry about Canada,
I just have a few seconds.
not Canada
And
first.
tell me how...
I would not hang out with that guy. He would drive me crazy. Trump says the USA doesn't need anything we have. Says the USA doesn't need our energy. Then freaks out when Doug Ford retaliates against the assault on Canada by saying he's going to put a 25% fee on on electricity going from Canada to the United States, and then says that that's a national security issue for the United States. But I thought you didn't need anything we have. I'm just throwing these things out there because I'm trying to understand. And the Fox News host had a point that I made a long time ago. If you're really that worried about getting ripped off, why don't you just end the subsidies to Canada? We're told that you subsidize us to the tune of $250 billion a year. So wouldn't you start there and just cut those off? Why not just end the subsidies? As a start, I say go ahead. And you know why he doesn't do that? Because it's a lie. They don't exist. The United States subsidizes Canada to the tune of, let me write it down for you. Here, let me show you how much it is if you can see it on camera here. Zero. The United States doesn't subsidize Canada. They don't send subsidies to us. It's a lie. But hey, if I'm wrong, just go ahead and cut them. Oh, it'll be painful. But it's a good place to start. Or maybe start telling the truth. That would be a good place to start. Because the truth is in the details. Simple messages, simplified messages, half-truths. That's not truth. That's often misleading. And sometimes outright lies. Oh, that would be called lying. The dairy subsidy, which I've explained, the dairy tariffs in Canada, which I've explained, also have truth wrapped up in the details. And I keep hearing people, even especially on the Canadian side over the last couple of days, pro-American, sort of MAGA, whatever, influencers, even news outlets, talking about the dairy tariff in Canada to 250, 270%, in that range. And saying that because of the supply management system for dairy in Canada, Canadians pay twice as much for milk as they do in the United States. So I thought, I don't think that sounds right. I just don't think it sounds right. So I thought tonight we would check the price together. And it's not difficult to do that, to find the truth. So let's just take a quick gander, shall we? Since we're here in Canada and home of Gander, Newfoundland. I'm not going to go to Gander, though. We're going to go to Windsor, Ontario, first of all. What is the price of milk in Windsor, Ontario, Canada today? Let's go to the Loblaw store. And you will see that 4 liters of milk, equivalent to like a gallon. In fact, it's a little more than a gallon because there are 3.75 liters in 1 gallon. So that's a little bit more. You get a quarter of a liter more in this package of milk than you would in a gallon on the U.S. side, approximately. Pretty close. $6.25 Canadian is what it costs today at the grocery store to buy 2% milk. What does it cost across the border? Just over the bridge into Detroit, Michigan. How much? Let's go to Kroger. I've been to Kroger stores. How much for a gallon of milk in the U.S. of A.? The Motor City, where apparently we've stolen their entire auto industry, just Canada alone. Kroger vitamin D whole milk, $3.99 U.S. Okay. Oh, well, Rick, that's a lot more money, right? That's $3.99 versus $6.25. Wow, that's a lot more. Not really. Do the exchange. What does it work out to? $3.99 USD to CAD is $5.76. Let me show you the conversion. There it is. 576. $3.99 US equals $5.76 Canadian. So, if you were to buy, and then you have to add in the other quarter of a liter, which would reduce the overall cost. So, bottom line is you're paying about 40 cents more. 40 cents. Not double. Not double. Truth matters, and the truth is in the details. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
The leader of NATO, Mark Rutte, at the White House today, meeting with Trump. Let's go there and pick up the conversation. Boy, they were talking about a lot of things. Talk about a diplomatic dance. A little more respect shown to Mr. Rutte from DJT.
But when you look at Trump 47,
It'll be hard to tell.
what happened the last couple of weeks is really staggering. The Europeans committing to a package of 800 billion defense spending. The Germans now, potentially up to $500 billion extra in defense spending. And then, of course, you had Keir Starmer here, the British Prime Minister, and others, all committing to much higher defense spending. We're not there. We need to do more, but I really want to work together with you in a run-up to the The Hague Summit to make sure that we will have a NATO which is really reinvigorated under your leadership, and we are getting there. We also discuss defense production because we need to produce more weaponry. We are not doing enough. Not in the US, not in Europe, and we are lacking behind when you compare to the Russians and the Chinese. And you have a huge defense industrial base. Europeans buying 4 times more here than the other way around, which is good because you have a strong defense industry, but we need to do more there to make sure that we ramp up the production and kill the red tape. So I would love to work with you on that. And finally, Ukraine. You broke the deadlock. As you said, all the killing, the young people dying, cities getting destroyed. The fact that you did that you started the dialogue with the Russians, and the successful talks in Saudi Arabia now with the Ukrainians. I really want to commend you for this. So, The Hague is my hometown. I love to host you there in the summer and work together to make sure that will be a splash, a real success, projecting American power on the world stage.
What Mark is saying is when I first went to NATO, my first meeting, I noticed that very few people were paying. And if they were, they weren't paying their fair share. There were only 7 countries that were paying what they were supposed to be paying, which was Yeah.
It's even worse.
Could be even worse. But there were just very few countries that were paying, and even the paying, it was at 2%, which is too low. It should be higher. It should be quite a bit higher. But you had Poland, and I remember Poland was actually paying a little bit more than they were supposed to, which I was very impressed with. And they've been actually terrific, and some of the others. But most of them weren't paying, or they were paying very little. And I didn't think it was appropriate to bring it up there, but I said it's going to be brought up at my next meeting. And my next meeting, the first meeting, you want to give them a little break. The second meeting, it began, and I was able to raise hundreds of billions of dollars. I just said, we're not going to be involved with you if you're not going to pay. And the money started pouring in, and NATO became much stronger because of my actions and working along with a lot of people, including Mark. But they would not pay for other presidents, and I don't think other presidents even knew that they weren't paid. I asked first question, has everybody paid up? And literally, I mean, they told me 7. You could be right, it could be 3, but that makes it even worse. But they just weren't paying. And I said, no, I won't protect if you're not paying. If you're delinquent or if the money isn't paid, why would we do that? And as soon as I said that, got a little hit from the press because they said, oh, gee, that's not very nice. But if you said the other, nobody would have paid. And the money started coming in by the billions. And, hundreds of billions of dollars flowed into NATO, and NATO became strong.
Yeah.
And you remember that. Your predecessor, who I thought was a very good man.
Absolutely.
Actually.
Yes, Stoltenberg. He sends his best greetings.
He was terrific. Stoltenberg, Secretary General. And he made the statement that when Trump came in, the money started coming in like we never saw before. Hundreds of billions, actually probably close to $600 billion came in, and NATO became strong from that standpoint. And now we have to use it wisely, and we have to get this war over with, and you'll be back to a normal, much more normal life. And maybe we're close. We're getting words that things are going okay in Russia, and it doesn't mean anything until we hear what the final outcome is. But they have very serious discussions going on right now with President Putin and others. And hopefully they all want to end this nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's a horrible thing when you look. I get pictures every week. They give me the pictures of the battlefield, which I almost don't want to see.
What is golf?
Hang on just a moment. Here we go.
Young people laying arms and legs and heads laying all over the field. It's the most terrible thing that you'll ever see. And it's got to stop. These are young people with mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and friends. And it's got to stop. So we hopefully are going to be in a good position sometime today to have a good idea. We'll have, we know where we are with Ukraine, and we are getting good signals outside of Russia as to where we are with Russia. And hopefully they'll do the right thing. It's really humanity. We're talking about humanity. We're not talking about the money. But then you add the money to it, and hundreds of billions of dollars is being spent and really wasted so unnecessarily. It should have never happened. So it's an honor to have you here. They picked a great gentleman. I'll tell you, I was so happy to hear, because you had somebody, Stoltenberg was really good, and you have somebody that's going to do an incredible job. And I was so much in favor of you. You have no idea. They had another person that I did not like. I was not happy. And I think I kept him from, you know what I'm talking about. I said, this is the right man to do it. And he really did. He was a great prime minister of the Netherlands. He did a great job. And that's what he's doing right now. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And it's a very great honor to have you. And we even have some of our great energy people here today, right? We have the governor, and we have Chris, Chris, right? He's supposed to be the most talented man in the world of energy, according to the governor. So I don't know if he's right. And we have General, you've been fantastic. Thank you very much. And we have a lot of good people that won't be so much involved with this, but they wanted to see what was happening. It's become a little bit of a show, but they wanted to see what was happening, and I think a lot of good things are happening. So with that, if anybody would have a question.
Mr. President, on Russia.
Please, go ahead.
Adam.
Sorry. Steve Witkoff's trip to Moscow, you spoke about it. What sort of agreement do you hope he comes away from that with?
Well, we'd like to see a ceasefire from Russia, and we have, not been working in the dark. We've been discussing with Ukraine land, and pieces of land that would be kept and lost, and all of the other elements of a final agreement. There's a power plant involved, a very big power plant involved. Who's going to get the power plant, and who's going to get this and that? And so, it's not an easy process. But phase one is the ceasefire. A lot of the individual subjects have been discussed, though. We've been discussing concepts of land because you don't want to waste time with a ceasefire if it's not going to mean anything. So we're saying, look, this is what you can get. This is what you can't get. They discussed NATO and being in NATO, and everybody knows what the answer to that is. They've known that answer for 40 years, in all fairness. So a lot of the details of a final agreement have actually been discussed. Now we're going to see whether or not Russia's there, and if they're not, it'll be a very disappointing moment for the world. Yeah.
Vladimir Putin just said he is open to a ceasefire, but he does still have some concerns. He suggested that you two should speak directly. Do you have plans to speak to him soon? If so, when? Are you confident you can get this across the table?
Sure. He did say that today. It was a very promising statement because other people are saying different things, and you don't know if they have anything to really, if they have any meaning, or I don't know. I think some of them were making statements. I don't think they have anything to do with it. No, he put out a very promising statement, but it wasn't complete. And yeah, I'd love to meet with him or talk to him. But we have to get it over with fast. Every day people are being killed. It's not like, as we sit here, 2 people will be killed. Think of it. 2 people are going to be killed during this little period of time. Thousands of people a week are dying. So we really don't have very much time. We have to make this fast. It shouldn't be very complicated.
Mr. President, a representative of Canada, the finance minister, are in town and will meet members of your administration during the day. Any chances that you will ban on the tariffs on aluminum and the ones that are planned for April 2nd?
No.
You are not going to change your mind?
No, not. Look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to. In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. I have many friends in Canada. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, the great. Hey, how good is Wayne Gretzky? He's the great one. But we have, I know many people from Canada that are good friends of mine. But, the United States can't subsidize a country for $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything that they give. We do it because we want to be helpful, but it comes a point when you just can't do that. You have to run your own country. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S., just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state. Keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states. Maybe our greatest state. But why should we subsidize another country for $200 billion? It costs us $200 billion a year. And again, we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We have more than they do. We don't need anything. We don't need their cars. I'd much rather make the cars here. And there's not a thing that we need. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them. And we have to do this. I'm sorry, we have to do this, yes.
Mr. President,
yeah.
You have made it very clear that NATO needs to step up, although great progress has been made in the first mandate. How do you envision this new transatlantic?
Are you talking about NATO stepping up? Well, NATO is stepping up through this man. This man is a man that only knows how to step up. And we have the same goal in mind. We want the war ended. And he's doing his job. He only knows how to do a good job. That's one thing. That's why I fought for him to get that job. because they had some other candidates that I'll tell you would not have done a very good job.
I need this part of the move for my family.
So we'll get you a clip. We're going to get him a clip of that little last statement. The rest of the statements he doesn't care.
Sir, how does this new transatlantic cooperation, how do you envision it?
Well, that's one thing. I mean, we're on the other side of the ocean, and they're right there. And yet we're in for $350 billion because of Biden, and they're in for $100 billion. So it's a big difference. And it's unfair. And I said, you have to equalize. They should equalize. It should have never happened where Biden just gave this money away. Now, as you know, we have an agreement with Ukraine on the rare earths and other things, and that'll get us something back, a lot back. It'll get us our money back. We're not doing it for that, though. I'm just doing this to get the war stopped. I'm doing it really to save lives, but at the same time, we were treated very unfairly, as we always are by every country. And we're in for very substantially more than the European nations are in for, and that shouldn't be. They're much more affected by it than we are, because we do have an ocean in between. But I don't know. I think good things are going to happen. I really do. I think good things are going to happen. I do say, we were talking before, and Mark was very nice. He said, if you would get involved, there would be nothing. You'd just be going on. This thing would have gone on for a long time.
Breaking a deadlock. It was crucial.
Yeah, we broke a deadlock. We did break a deadlock. I hope it's meaningful. Yes, did you have one? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Amanda Head with Just the News. On the southern border, you've got DHS and ICE who are reporting that there was a little bit of fudging of numbers during the Biden administration on both the catch and the release side with respect to reporting the number of illegals coming into the country.
They cheated on the numbers. The numbers were. I love that question. Who are you with?
Just the News, Amanda Head.
Very nice. That's good.
Do you know how many of those are criminal illegal aliens? And
Many
Biden's out of office. Alejandro Mayorkas, who gets held
Biden
accountable?
fudged the numbers. The numbers were totally fake. And he gave fake numbers. I knew they were fake. Everybody knew they were fake. But now it came out. And terrible what they did. That administration was a horror show for this country.
Can you hold anyone accountable?
Well, I don't know. They gave phony numbers. And phony numbers are a very bad thing to give. But I'm not sure about that. I don't know.
You got to
how
know.
it would play. We want to get it straightened out. We're after many, many bad people that were let into our country, and Kristi Noem and my friend Homan. How good is Tom Homan doing, right? And they're after him, and you see they're taking him out in record numbers. Gang members, gang leaders, drug dealers. There's a problem the Netherlands does not have. The Netherlands never had this problem. If you'd like to take it, I could deliver some people. I could deliver some nice people to the Netherlands if you'd like.
I'm not sure.
No, what he did to this country, letting 21 million people flow through an open border. Many of those people were hard criminals from prisons and jails, from mental institutions, and I would say insane asylums, because they were seriously deranged. And they're here from, not South America, from all over the world. From South America, but from all over the world. And it's so sad. You'd say, why would anybody do this? Why? Yeah, go ahead.
And one more, there's some new internal Democrat polling that doesn't look great for Democrats, but it also has 54% unfavorability for Republicans in swing states and battlegrounds for the midterms. Do you consider those voters capturable for Republicans?
Yeah, well, we did. I won every swing state, as you know, by a lot. And I won the popular vote by a lot. And we won the counties. If you look at the counties and district plan, we had 2,725, and they had 501. That's why the map is all red. So we had a great thing. Yeah, I think winning from the Democrats, if you look the other night, I made a speech, and I introduced two young ladies who were killed, viciously, violently killed. Young, unbelievable, both outstanding people. They were killed by illegal aliens. And the Democrats wouldn't get up and applaud. The mothers were, inconsolable. They were crying, and everybody was crying. The Democrats sat there with stone faces. They didn't clap. They didn't stand. They didn't do anything. We had a young man with very serious cancer. Wanted to, his dream is to be with the police department someday, and he was introduced. They didn't even clap. I mean, they were disgusting. Frankly, they were disgusting. There's something wrong with them. They're deranged. They're deranged, like Jack Smith. They're deranged people. And I never saw anything like it. I'm standing up and I introduced the mother and the parents of these two young girls that were just recently essentially killed, violently killed. And the Democrats are like this. It's so sad. And I saw this morning where one of them is pretty well known, one is arguing, fighting like crazy over men being able to play in women's sports. I said, I thought that was tried. I thought that was about a 95%, I think it's a 95% issue. But in a way, I want them to keep doing it because I don't think they can win a race. And I tell the Republicans, I said, don't bring that subject up because there's no election right now. But about a week before the election, bring it up because you can't lose. And everything's transgender this, transgender that. You know, they have bad politics, but one thing, they stick together. You know, I wish, and the Republicans stick together mostly, but we have a couple that are grandstanders. You know, you always have grandstanders in life. But the Democrats, they have grandstanders, but when it comes to a vote, they do stick together, right?
It seems like they'll stick together on the shutdown. Will that hurt Democrats going into midterms?
Well, if they do a shutdown, and ultimately that might lead to very, very high taxes, because we're talking about a shutdown, we're talking about getting to work immediately on the greatest tax bill ever passed. That was the one we did. It was a renewal, and it's an addition to it. And we're going to cut people's taxes. And if we don't open, the Democrats are stopping all of these good things that we're providing. We're providing the greatest package of benefits that this country's ever provided. The biggest part of that's going to be tax cuts for the middle class and for businesses, small businesses, employers, people that hire people in jobs. And if it's shut down, it's only going to be, if there's a shutdown, it's only because of the Democrats. And they would really be taking away a lot from our country and from the people of our country.
Mr. President, on tariffs, you made clear you're not backing down from this, but many American small business owners say they are concerned that these tariffs are going to hurt them. What's your message to them?
They're going to be so much richer than they are right now. And we have many, yesterday General Motors was in, they want to invest $60 billion. The people from Facebook were in yesterday. They're going to invest $60 billion by the end of the year. Other people are talking about numbers. Apple, as you know, a few days ago announced $500 billion investment. They're going to build their plants in the United States, which, as you know, almost all of their plants are in China. Now they're building in the United States. Look, the reason is two things. Number one, the election, November 5th. And the other thing is tariffs. I think probably in that order. But Tim Cook came in and he announced 500, think of it, 500 billion, not million. 500 million's a lot when you think about it, right? But I would have been happy with 500 million, but it's $500 billion investment by Apple in the United States. And that's because of the election result, and it's because of the tariffs and the tax incentives too, you know, tariffs and tax incentives. And I've never seen anything like it. We have plants going up now in Indiana. We have plants going up in Michigan. A lot of plants going to be planned from. I'm trying to steer them to Michigan because Michigan got so badly beaten by, you know, what happened with Europe. You know, if you look at Europe, take a look at the EU. We're not allowed to sell cars there. It's prohibitive because of their policies and also their non-monetary tariffs. They put obstacles in your way that you can do nothing about. But if you take a look at what happens, so we sell no cars to Europe. I mean, virtually no cars, and they sell millions of cars to us. They don't take our agriculture, we take their agriculture. It's like a one-way street with them. The European Union is very, very nasty. They sue our companies. Apple was forced to pay $16 billion on a case that, very much like my cases that I won. They shouldn't have been even cases, but we felt they had no case, and they ended up having an extremely favorable judge and decision. But they're suing Google, they're suing Facebook, they're suing all of these companies, and they're taking billions of dollars out of American companies, many more than the ones I just mentioned. And I guess they're using it to run Europe or something. I don't know what they're using it for, but they treat us very badly. China obviously treats us very badly. Almost everybody does, and I blame past presidents, to be honest, because when I was president, we received so far about $700 billion from China over the years on the tariffs that I put in. No other president got 10 cents from China. And that was only beginning, except for COVID. I would have been able to finish the process, but we had to fight the COVID thing, and we did really well with it, but we had to fight. And then we had actually, as you remember, Mark, we actually handed over the stock market. It was higher than just previous to COVID coming in, which was sort of a miracle, frankly. We did a good job. But the tariffs are very important. And I think the psychology, there's great spirit. When Mark came in, he said, congratulations, there's a whole new spirit, there's a whole new light over this country and really over the world. Because you have somebody that, a whole group of people really, because I talk about this whole group, that we know what we're doing and a lot of great things are happening. But I've never seen investment like this. Trillions of dollars is being invested in the United States now that would have never, our country could have failed. Another 4 years of this, what happened in the last 4 years, our country would have been a crime-ridden mess. And I don't know if you noticed, little thing they call it, but it's not a little thing if you like eggs and you don't have a lot of money. Eggs have gone down 25% in the last couple of weeks. We inherited that problem, eggs. Groceries have gone down a little bit. Energy's gone down. Do you want to speak to that for a second, Governor? Would you just say a couple of words, you and Chris, about energy, what's happened?
Well, happy to, but I think that Chris and I just came from CERAWeek, which is the largest conference in the world, so global leaders, people from the EU, officials from all the energy-producing countries, all there, and all the global nationals, all the U.S. The spirit of that group is through the roof because now they realize that in the United States that President Trump's policies are pro-developing more energy, as opposed to we're trying to shut down energy, and that pro-growth, pro-business, pro-energy approach is giving people the optimism. So then the markets are reacting to that, and energy prices on the futures market are going to go down because people know we're not going to be killing off the energy we need for prosperity in all of our countries, but also for peace. Because people have used energy to fuel these wars that President Trump is working so hard to end. And we know that high energy prices were driving the inflation that he talked about. So it accomplishes two goals for us, which is prosperity for the world, peace for the world, when we have smart energy policies. And President Trump has brought common sense back to how we think about energy.
And it's brought down now $65 a barrel, I saw this morning. That's phenomenal news. And that's what brought it up. The energy they took our beautiful energy policies and they just messed them up. And then they went immediately back to them but by that time they lost it. They lost that bronco, as the expression goes. Chris, do you have something to say?
Oh, I think Doug said it well, but you just can't overstate how important the return of common sense, the return of knowledge about energy and pro-American consumers, pro-investment in our country. I think globally that was welcomed. It means capital flows, it means more sobriety and lower energy prices, more economic opportunity for Americans. So yeah, it was elated atmosphere at a global energy conference.
Well, we're working on one project. It should be very easy. It's a pipeline going through a small section of New York. New York's held it up for years, actually, for years. They've wanted to do it for years and years. And it will reduce the most expensive energy almost in the world is in New England because they have no way of getting it there.
Okay, this goes on and on and on. So let's take a little break and we'll come back. There's a little section of this that I do want to get to later, because it all relates to Greenland, Canada, all of that. But we have a lot of other stuff to cover tonight, too. And he's just going on and just talking about, he sits there and says that you shouldn't make up numbers, which he does constantly. And he contradicts himself. This is... He says that the United States is getting ripped off, but in 2017, he's the guy who approved the USMCA deal replacing NAFTA, and he says here, as it was about to be approved, I just went and looked it up, America's great USMCA trade bill is looking good. It will be the best and most important trade deal ever made by the USA. Good for everybody. Farmers, manufacturers, energy, unions, tremendous support. Importantly, we will finally end our country's worst trade deal, NAFTA, which of course was negotiated by Brian Mulroney. That was back when Reagan was in the White House, and it seemed to serve both countries very well at the time. And today, cars travel back and forth across the border. New cars, new car production, trade pretty much tariff-free because of USMCA. The other reason that USMCA was actually a good deal, a balanced trade deal that was mutually beneficial, not just for Canada and the United States, but also Mexico, was because the way that the trade deal was approached then was to lift people up. As part of the deal, Mexican auto workers were given wage increases so that Mexico couldn't use low wages to attract investment to their country from the big auto companies or auto parts companies. And so it forced the factories in Mexico to become more efficient and compete on a level playing field, not on the backs of workers. So it improved the standard of living for the auto workers in Mexico, while at the same time ensuring that American auto workers had a better standard of living as well, because it didn't allow another country to put pressure, downward pressure on the wages in the United States through foreign competition on the labor market when workers are not allowed to cross the border free, tariff-free, because they're human beings. They're citizens, not commodities or goods. I can't just go work in Mexico. I can't just go work in the United States, which is part of the drawback of trade deals. Human beings are not allowed to travel back and forth and compete for wages as easily as goods. Are you following what I'm saying? So that was a good balanced trade deal. Everybody on a level playing field, go. And then you're trading back and forth. It's building economic activity in all of the countries, and everybody gets to trade. And because you have people in Mexico making money, they can buy cars and other goods from the United States too, because they're making a living wage. And the same thing in Canada. But you just pull everything back in, and you're actually canceling big markets for export, because you're taking jobs out of those markets too. This is so stupid. I mean, it's just ridiculous. He is so exasperating. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so I also wanted to show you, and I think I have it isolated here. Yeah, Trump tried to kind of pull Rutte into the whole Greenland Canada debate thing, and again, Rutte being very diplomatic. The thing is that there's like this chilling effect right now on things people say. It's like a self-imposed form of censorship, but it's not really self-imposed. It's because everybody's afraid of this guy. So they're not saying what they really mean. Who knows what Rutte is really thinking? But here's this exchange over Greenland.
What is your vision for the potential annexation of Greenland and getting the potential?
Yeah. Well, I think it'll happen, and I'm just thinking, I didn't give it much thought before, but I'm sitting with a man that could be very instrumental. You know, Mark, we need that for international security, not just security, international. We have a lot of our favorite players, cruising around the coast, and we have to be careful. And we'll be talking to you. It's a very appropriate, really a very appropriate question.
There's an issue in the high north, so the Arctic. So what you did, so when it comes to Greenland, yes or not joining the US, I would leave that outside for me, this discussion, because I don't want to drag NATO in that. But when it comes to the high north and the Arctic, you are totally right. The Chinese are now using these routes. We know that the Russians are rearming. We know we have a lack of icebreakers. So the fact that the outside Russia, there are 7 Arctic countries working together on this under US leadership is very important to make sure that that region, that part of the world stays safe. And we know things are changing there, and we have to be there.
Okay. And, yeah. Just give me a moment here. Okay. I'm still here. I'm just getting something lined up. So, G7 foreign ministers meeting today in Canada, Charlevoix, Quebec, and a lot of words being carefully chosen there too. We have here. Look at this headline. This coming from the Hill Times. And in Canada, country being threatened by the United States, and it's a real threat. G7 foreign ministers avoid explicit support for Canada as Trump doubles down. Yeah, you don't want to say anything too public, because the orange man in the White House might get just a little bit triggered. Who will stand with Canada? That was the key question as the G7 top diplomats gathered for a second day in Quebec's resort region of Charlevoix, Quebec. A show of support was seen through a maple leaf pin and a social media post, but an unequivocal statement of defense of Canada did not come. The G7 foreign ministers meeting is taking place as U.S. President Donald Trump continues to put Canadian sovereignty in his crosshairs, with frequent reference to absorbing Canada as a 51st state. Before his first visit north of the border since becoming the top American diplomat, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio declared that Canada's sovereignty wouldn't be a topic of discussion. Yeah, it would just be a little bit awkward, wouldn't it, to put that on the table for discussion. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock posted a photo on X with EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas directing a message to Foreign Minister Melanie Joly. We've got your back. And Kallas wore red today and donned a maple leaf pin. You can see the picture of her there, wearing her red outfit. And the former Prime Minister of Estonia strode into the press room at Le Manoir Richelieu in La Malbaie, Quebec, just before noon for a televised interview with CNN. Reporters in the room immediately encircled the top diplomat as she spoke with an anchor back in the American broadcaster studio. After her one-on-one interview ended, reporters erupted in questions asking for clarity on where Europe stood on American attacks against Canada's sovereignty. She quickly exited the room without answering. There's the post on X where she says, "We've got your back," at Melanie Joly, hashtag Canada, hashtag solidarity. Red dress. See, the thing is, with Canada, us guys up here, we've got friends. Can't say that so much about Donald Trump these days. There's a difference between having friends and having people who are afraid of you. Here's Melanie Joly at the G7 foreign ministers meeting. And again, this is the foreign ministers, foreign affairs ministers from the G7 countries, of which Melanie Joly is one because she's Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Here we go.
Operation, I cannot find a better time for us to host this important meeting. There's a saying here in Quebec, on notre pain sur la planche, so we have a lot to do together, and it's true. We have a lot of bread on our plate and to be working together on common challenges. So I think that here as G7 foreign minister, we must meet the moment, and it is up to us to do that task. And we should not be daunted by the task. I think we should be working together to meet this moment. In recent years, we've shown it in many ways, maybe to curb the COVID-19 pandemic, maybe also for a strong response to defend Ukrainian sovereignty, or again to counter foreign interference. We've worked together also to champion human rights, democracy, and the protection of vulnerable communities from violence and persecution around the world. So, of course, peace and stability is on the top of our agenda, and I look forward to discussing how we can continue to support Ukraine in the face of Russia's illegal aggression, and we all want to see just and lasting peace in Ukraine. Of course, we want to foster long-term stability as well in the Middle East, in the interest of all the people in the region, and we want to build resilience and stability in the Indo-Pacific, in Haiti, and in Venezuela. We also want to make sure that we bring back peace and stability in Sudan and in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Alors, nous allons parler de l'Ukraine, du Moyen-Orient.
Okay, so just some remarks from her. And here she is talking. Just go back to her for a moment.
Sabotage of critical undersea infrastructure, illegal fishing, and the loss of maritime biodiversity.
She's talking
about.
about.
I want to make sure also that we look at the issue of growing strategic contestation in the Red Sea, in the South and East China Seas, and the Taiwan Strait. So, looking forward to making sure that this is a success, working with all my friends and colleagues around this table. Et au plaisir de pouvoir répondre à vos questions un petit peu plus tard, une fois qu'on aura eu toutes les conversations nécessaires aux différents enjeux en place. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Okay, there you go. So G7 underway, and I would say you've got some very awkward stuff going on over there, and that brings me back here to what I was commenting on at the beginning of the program, this French nuclear submarine in the Halifax Harbor. And that's raising some eyebrows. Here's CTV, Atlantic.
A foreign submarine will be docked in the Halifax Harbor for the next several days. The French Navy submarine is currently docked in Shearwater. It is specifically a Suffren-class nuclear attack submarine FS Tourville, and airspace restrictions and Halifax Harbor public access can be restricted as well while the submarine is visiting. So the FS Tourville will be in the harbor until March 21st. You can take a little walk.
Yeah, you can take a look at it. Yeah, somebody should be taking a look at that. And a lot of people are. It has a lot of people talking. if you understand what I'm saying, without me saying some things out loud, because, these days one has to be very careful what you say. And since there's no censorship at all, we have to be very careful what we say, don't we? Yes, but over on the Enforcer channel, some people are saying the quiet part out loud, it seems, at least in terms of the quiet questions. This coming from one of their regular viewers, a question. Here, I'll just play the clip, and you can assess for yourself.
But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least in my opinion. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the questions, because we have a decent amount of questions tonight. A decent amount. And we also have a lot more news that's been going on around the rest of the world that we have to get to. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so our first Super Chat question of the night goes to Rob McGuffin, who's a longtime channel legend, and thank you very much, Rob, for that $27 support, and we appreciate it very much. That's 27 Canadian, by the way. Shout out to Canada. And they said, do you think a French nuclear attack sub, FS Tourville, surfacing at Halifax, Nova Scotia, is sending the U.S. a message over the constant threats of annexation against Canada?
It may be, but the thing is that I don't really think so, because I think that there's been a decent amount of French submarines that have arrived in Canada in the past. It's kind of, let me actually go see if I can find that. French submarine in Canada. Let me go see if I can find any stories. Let's see here. What happened to the French? Let's see here. Actual crowns offered to provide. Let's see. Let's see here. Maybe I can find an answer here. Let me see if I can. French, let's see.
Come on.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can find any information.
He's going to find it.
There was a French submarine that did visit. Let's see. So there was a French submarine that visited in 2018 in Halifax, Canada.
No, there's one there now,
It
man.
was a Rubis class called the Amethyst. So there has been instances very recently, just within the past few years, where French submarines have arrived in Halifax Harbor. But to show y'all a picture of the vessel, let me go get you all a picture of this. This is actually a picture of the French nuclear attack submarine Tourville arriving in Halifax Harbor, which is actually pretty neat to see. But this is a fairly mundane thing for ships of allied powers or submarines, for that matter, to visit each other and just kind of show up. Is really more so the message of good faith and goodwill. But I don't really think that this is a direct response to the United States, because so far from what we've been seeing, if the Canadians were ever to be under the nuclear protection or the protection of any other country, it appears that they're most likely going to be aligning their protection to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, because Canada is a Commonwealth country, meaning that is a member of the Commonwealth of Nations, which is headed by the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which means in a larger sense that while they are not in British imperial holding any longer, and they're not the Dominion of Canada, they largely do recognize in a symbolic way that the British are still largely the leader of some form of a ceremonial sphere. And it appears that the Canadians may also be trying to lean on that in the present day to possibly create some form of nuclear assurance for Canada against the United States, possibly conducting an invasion.
I think so, maybe, yeah.
Although I still think that an invasion of Canada may be a decent unlikelihood even still. But still, it seems as more so that this arrival of the French submarine was a...
Hang on, yeah. Yeah.
really trying to send a message directly to the United States. So with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can, in my opinion. And with that, we are going to be on to the next one. But also, let's see. Also, I've seen some people. So, interestingly enough, man, there's always the weirdest things to get people going. Because I went and got the Oxford Dictionary
Okay, so the point, but the larger point is, why are we even talking about this? Why are we even talking about this? Because the threat is there. It shouldn't be. Absolutely no need for this. But Justin Trudeau before stepping down, had to go see the king. Why? Because the threat is real. You know, you guys are not being told everything because you can't say the quiet part out loud. Why do you think Parliament is prorogued? You think it's just because the Liberals are trying to avoid scrutiny? No. You prorogue Parliament when there's an existential threat to the country, to our system of government. That's part of the reason why. Not to say that they're not going to, lift that, but they needed a pause to stabilize things, partly so that the governing party had a moment to regroup and make sure that there was stability in the system before heading into the next election. Mark Carney, now the leader of the Liberal Party, but they couldn't come out and say that they're proroguing Parliament because the United States is threatening to take over our country. You can't say that out loud. That would be destabilizing in itself, because then you would trigger a really serious response from the man in the White House. You see? So they can't even say it. But I'm glad there's no censorship. And you don't hear that on any other channel. But that is one of the main reasons prorogation is used. But of course, people don't know that. And all the people who thought that Justin Trudeau was going to stick around, we were being told, right, by some of these people, oh, Justin Trudeau's not going anywhere. He resigned, but he didn't resign. He's still going to be the prime minister. He'll find a way to stay on. And I kept saying, no, he's not. He's leaving. And now you have a new leader. And Mark Carney will be sworn in, I guess, tomorrow. And then we're hearing there may be an election called as early as Sunday or even Monday. I don't know if that will happen. The government is within its constitutional rights to continue to govern, maybe even all the way till next fall. They could do that. But an election is coming, and from everything we're hearing, it's going to be sooner rather than later. And yeah, I think we will go to the polls very, very soon. Maybe, the writ could drop within, days, and then we're off to the races, and we have an election. I'm sorry, but these conspiratorial assessments of our system, of what's going on, a lot of them are. It's just bunk. And it's all designed to just get you jacked up and confuse you. There's just so much misinformation. I hate to use that term because even that triggers people. If you even say misinformation or disinformation, people lose their minds. In a way that it's like, it's not disinformation. Yeah, there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot. A lot to just confuse the crap out of you. And that's going to be a big challenge during the election. I guarantee you we're going to get just flooded with content online that will all be entirely designed to confuse and influence, manipulate us. And yes, Justin Trudeau did have to go see the king for this very issue. And of course, the king at the time saying he would not really comment on this, but he has shown support for Canada, even as the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Keir Starmer, not so much, because again, even though I think there is a lot of support for Canada because we are still part of the Commonwealth, even though we do have our own constitution now, patriated in 1982, it's a real thing. And all these people are telling you that it's not real. It's because they want the country broken up. And they probably are, I have to question. I want to see where's their transparency. That's what I would like to see as they call for transparency from all these other people. Where's theirs? They don't have to show you. What's their true motivation? Why are they so eager to have us give up our country as the 51st state or break it apart and destroy it? I'm just saying. So Trudeau went to see the king because that's our backstop. That's one of the things that we have in our back pocket to make sure that our actual sovereignty is protected, because we have friends. and allies. And we're still a Commonwealth country, and we take care of each other. Because being part of the Commonwealth doesn't mean that we're controlled. It means that we're part of a family. Here's a report on GB News talking about exactly that.
King Charles has backed Canada, telling senior Canadian Senate members of his deep affection for the country.
King tells of deepest affection for Canada. This, to me, is well, it could be argued that it's an intervention in politics. It comes off the back, of course, of Donald Trump wanting to annex Canada, making them the 51st state. The King has said he's expressed his deepest affection for Canada. Yeah, so is this an intervention in politics, or am I...
Well, do you know what? I'm not a monarchist, but I do have a fondness for King Charles, because I do think he likes to make these tongue-in-cheek comments that are slightly provocative. And we saw him do it to Liz Truss. He wore that tie which looked like the Greek flag around the Elgin Marbles, and now he's talking about his deepest affection for Canada. I think he's a bit more of a little bit of a less stickler for precedent, and I think he does make it quite clear in his own way his feelings about certain political topics, and I quite like it.
Yeah. The King has had to walk a diplomatic tightrope since Donald Trump launched his trade war on his northern neighbour and called for it to become the 51st state of America.
You said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada.
He believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. And I actually looked into some of the research about the cost of living in Canada, and the cost of living is much higher than it is here in the United States of America. The average cost of a home in Canada is much higher. In Quebec, the highest tax rate for an income of $150,000 or more is 53.3%, more than half of Canadians' incomes they are being taxed on. So the president has made it clear that he believes Canadians would be better served economically, militarily, if they were to become the 51st state of the United States of America.
Shortly after those threats, the monarch posted to Instagram a photo saying that he and Queen Camilla joined with Canadians to commemorate the 60th anniversary.
New offline instant translator just dropped. Check out this brand new instant.
He went on to say the flag has become internationally recognised as a symbol of a proud, resilient and compassionate country. On a personal level, he said, it's a symbol that never fails to elicit a sense of pride and admiration, as I recall with the deepest affection my many Canadian visits and friendships. Canadians have been disappointed with the lack of support they've received from Britain since Trump set his eyes on the country. Keir Starmer told reporters there was no divide between him and the US on the issue.
Because we have been taken advantage of like no country has ever been taken advantage of. Thank you very much. And
look, we had a really good discussion, a productive discussion, a good discussion, as a result of which our teams are now going to be working together on an economic deal. Our teams are going to be working together on security in Ukraine. You mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
Thank you. Please. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes. Thank you.
He again declined to stand up for Canada in an interview with Fox News.
King Charles obviously is also the head of state in Canada. What do you or does the King think about President Trump's calls for Canada to join America as the 51st state?
Well, let me deal with the invitation, because this is a very special invitation, because it's an invitation to the President from His Majesty the King for a second state visit. That's unprecedented. That's not happened before. That is history in the making, and I'm very pleased to be able to go back to His Majesty and tell him that President Trump has agreed. As for what His Majesty may think of world events, that's not for me to say. His Majesty obviously will express himself in his own way, but it's not for me to express his views.
Starmer told an angry Commons that he didn't have the time to discuss the country with Trump.
Speaker,
It was very welcome to hear the Prime Minister acknowledge the contribution of Canada to Ukraine's self-defence and its status as a vital ally for the UK. Last week, the Prime Minister was asked in the US by the press about President Trump's repeated calls for Canada to become a state within the US. The PM answered that he and Trump didn't address that issue, didn't address Canada. Yet, wasn't this meeting a good opportunity to remind President Trump about sovereignty, independence, including that of Canada?
Yes, but it's a serious point. In the time we had available, I was most anxious to discuss the question of security guarantees, and that's why I devoted the vast amount of time I had there. But on the question of Canada, I think we should be absolutely clear. Canada is a vital ally to the United Kingdom, to the Commonwealth, and has played a leading part in relation to Ukraine, not least on the vital training that they have provided. And we should be very proud of what the Canadians have done.
Social media was awash with ridicule of Donald Trump.
My dream has come true. I am now King Trump.
Your Majesty Governor Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau from Canada has come to see you.
Greetings, Your Majesty, from the great land of Canada. Your Majesty, I beg of you, please do not impose a 25% tariff on my people.
The threat to Canadian sovereignty appears to have driven a greater appreciation for Britain and the monarchy.
God Save the King could be ringing out in school halls in Canada very soon, as one school district has proposed playing at the end of every school day to some people's bemusement. This will be happening in the Delphine School District in Manitoba, as you'll see there. Now, this used to be a tradition years ago and has died out and people just don't really do it anymore, but they thought, we're going to bring this bad boy back, especially after the conflict with the US lately, so, you know, want to realign with the old big dad, you know. They initially proposed this, there was some kickback, but yesterday at a meeting they said, no, we're going to push on with this, seeking legal advice to make sure everything's tickety-boo, but still, we're going to do it. There is concern about how this will make Indigenous people feel, but with everything that's going on in the world, and again, with the strife with the US, they want to, you know, probably reach out to other countries and realign themselves as countries in Europe are pulling together. So, it's an odd one, but we'll have some syrup and yeah, great, it's all good. We'll start playing hockey and stuff.
Canadian identity often defines itself as against America and pro-Britain.
Canada is also a place whose leaders have always had a curiously ambivalent attitude towards their own country's independence, well into the early 20th century, in fact, by which point Canada was already almost entirely self-governing. Independence was still considered a dirty word in some corners of Canadian politics. Canada's greatest Prime Minister, Sir Wilfrid Laurier, even has this infamous quote where he says, "We have found that our Canadian independence is quite compatible with our dependence as a colony." A lot of this has to do with the anti-American way that Canadian patriotism has traditionally been defined, since the Americans derived their patriotic national identity from a rejection of the British Empire. Canada would derive its patriotic national identity from an embrace of that empire, with anyone who is seen as being too critical of the imperial bonds being denounced as some sort of unpatriotic closet America lover.
Under Keir Starmer, Britain hasn't been so keen to reciprocate Canada's affection. Britain has tried to cozy up to Donald Trump in the hope that it would avoid tariffs that have been applied to other NATO allies, falling back on our so-called special relationship. Yet the US president slapped levies on all steel and aluminium imports, including from Britain.
The PM being incredibly careful what he says about Canada in particular, stressing they're an ally, but also tariffs and Trump's behaviour more broadly. He says that he is disappointed, yes, that the US is bringing in tariffs on steel and aluminium from the UK at 25%, but saying, look, they're taking a pragmatic approach and that's what's needed ultimately to get what they hope will be a trade deal with America. I think we are some way off that. Worth saying that this is a global rollout, the special relationship that we hear so much about. Only a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump was suggesting that perhaps we might escape them because of that special relationship, but it seems, for the moment at least, that's not happening.
Okay. Hang on. I can't believe we're even talking about all this tonight. How did we get here? How did we get here? Okay, enough of that. Un momento, por favor. Okay. The end of that. So, nuclear submarine, and it is not hyperbole for me to be talking about that French nuclear sub in that in the port of Halifax. Who was it that people freaked out about? Who got triggered? Was it Chrystia Freeland who said that we need to? I think it was Freeland who talked about, making sure that we have a nuclear deterrent in the face of this threat, and people flipped. Just saying. We don't have nukes here because we do live next door to Godzilla. We don't spend as much on the military as Donald Trump has been suggesting we should, I think largely because we live next door to Godzilla. And in the past, they didn't really want us to spend that much on defense. Certainly, they wanted to make sure that we didn't build up a industrial defense manufacturing base. That's why the Avro Arrow was not built. That's why our aerospace industry was not fully realized. But hey, if you want us to build up, we'll join with Europe and start spending money hand over fist. I'm pretty sure of that, especially now. I don't know how much time we have. Things are accelerating. And we are, I think, being pushed into a new world reality or order where we're going to be forced to make a decision. Go with the big guy to the south of us, or align with Europe. Because Europe clearly does not trust Donald Trump anymore, as much as Rutte is sitting in the White House laughing and smiling and choosing his words very carefully, just as Doug Ford did tonight. The reality is the relationship is broken. NATO, I don't know if it's even going to survive. And that's because of Donald J. frickin' Trump. He's betrayed Ukraine, turned his back on them, cutting the intelligence off. It cost them a lot of soldiers in Kursk. If it wasn't for Trump, the rout that took place there wouldn't have happened. They didn't have they did not have the intelligence, not just the surveillance, but like the internal intelligence to know where the troop movements were. And that's why the Russians were able to launch that attack and come in from behind and flank them, coming through those pipelines. They didn't have the intelligence they needed, and it isn't clear if, I think they're obviously retreating, and it's being, an absolute disaster for them at this point now. We'll see where it all ends up, and that is because of Donald Trump. With friends like that, you don't need enemies. Can't trust them. And what, to send a message to them? You gotta, you have to, you don't want peace. Well, they've got this ceasefire deal now. Russia really hasn't been asked to give up anything at this point. And the word is that it's very confusing. I'll put it to you that way. And because of the messaging coming from Russia on this ceasefire, which Ukraine has agreed to, because of the messaging, it's convoluted. It's kind of vague. And so you're getting media reports over here saying that some of them saying Putin has rejected the ceasefire. And over on the Russian side, a lot of the streamers who stream into North America, they're saying, oh no, he's supportive of this ceasefire. The truth is actually somewhere in the middle, and we don't actually have a ceasefire agreement tonight because Putin has not accepted it. He did give a full statement, but here, I'll show you the headline. Yeah, I'll show you this one first. This is NBC. Many like it. They're not alone with this. Putin says he supports ceasefire with Ukraine, but may need to call Trump. He says the idea of a ceasefire is, quote, is correct, and we will certainly support it. Putin said, but there are issues that need to be discussed. And that's why in the news conference with Rutte, Trump was asked about Putin wanting to speak to Trump directly about this stuff, and Trump says, he's open to doing that. It says here, Vladimir Putin said Russia was ready for a ceasefire, but suggested that Ukraine would need to accept further conditions before an agreement could be reached. We agree, quote, we agree with the proposals to stop the hostilities, the Russian leader said Thursday at a news conference. While Russia would support a pause in the fighting, there are issues that need to be discussed, he said, adding that he may need to have a phone call with Trump. And so if you really kind of dig into this, really what it comes down to is Putin saying that he wants a lasting peace, a more stable peace. He doesn't, and then his aides are saying in public that they don't really want a ceasefire, that will give Ukraine time to regroup. And really what it comes down to is they just want Ukraine to surrender, and they don't want to give up anything, and I think they want even more land beyond what they've even taken. So, it's very vague. And the narrative is spun up in such a way that it's designed to confuse people, to make it sound like he actually wants a ceasefire when it's pretty clear they don't. He's not going to agree to a ceasefire, and if he does, it won't hold. Mark my words. Not going to hold. And that's because they're going to demand things like Zelensky has to step aside, and they got to get rid of him. That's what the whole thing in the dust-up in the White House was about. It was setting Zelensky up to be replaced so that Russia, with Trump's support, can install a pro-Russian government, essentially executing a Russian coup of the government. And then it won't be neutral at all. That's not neutral. That is a Russian coup of the government so that the war can stop. And Trump just helped them because he removed the intelligence, took away the one card that Ukraine had to bargain with or play poker with, because he's helped the Russians push the Ukrainians out of Kursk, which they could have used at the bargaining table in order to get some of their land back in Ukraine. And so no wonder they don't have the cards. But here's the truth. Trump doesn't have any cards. None. He really doesn't. He holds no cards other than his nukes. and his big military if he chooses to go in, but he's not going to do that. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't really have any cards to sit at the table with. He's got no power. He's trying to pretend like he controls this situation, and he has no control. You know, there's one guy who's also trying to control the situation, and that's Putin. And he's just controlling Trump. Well, Trump is pretending to be the guy in control. It's not what's going on. And you think that it's not connected to what's going on in Canada? Look at this headline in the National Post. Look at this. Lutnick again. Look. Hello, Canada. Are you awake? Just say thank you, Lutnick says. Canada is acting like Ukraine in Trump negotiations. Are you beginning to clue in, ladies and gentlemen? Canada is acting like Ukraine. Gee. What do you make of that? But since a lot of people are still cloudy in their thinking on this because they're believing that it's just about NATO expansion and it doesn't have anything to do with Russia beginning the war 11 years ago by arming and even having soldiers go in from Russia to take part in an invasion that looked like a separatist movement to separate from Ukraine, separatists. What's going on in Canada right now? What's going on? Separatist movement? We're acting just like Ukraine. There's the headline, just say thank you. Isn't that what they said to Zelensky? Yeah. Have you said thank you in this meeting? Are you grateful enough? You ungrateful little snot. You Canada stain. You're just not grateful enough. I guess we'll just have to annex you. Yeah. I'm getting the message. Are you getting the message? Are you figuring this out? I hope you're beginning to connect the dots as I have. I hope I'm helping you do that. BC Premier David Eby, British Columbia, has introduced a new bill to strengthen the tariff response in the face of all this. Here's, let's go to him now. This is Eby discussing this new legislation, which is aimed at strengthening his government's ability to respond to the impact of U.S. tariffs on the BC and Canadian economy. Okay, let's, here we go.
Today's
David
announcement,
Eby. There we go.
as well as Ministry of Transportation and Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, Ministers Gibson and Farnworth, who are joining us here in pulling together this legislation that we introduced in the House. Their teams, our government, is working tirelessly to stand up for British Columbians in this uncertain time. Now, I know we're angry, and we're worried, and we're anxious as British Columbians, as Canadians, about the unpredictable and chaotic actions of the president as he works to apparently try to collapse the U.S. economy and bring Canada with it. And we can't stand by as we know that he is going to continue to bring out unpredictable executive orders, directions that include direct attacks, not just on Canada, but on now the European Union, on other countries around the world. For our part, our job is to protect BC jobs, protect BC families. And part of doing that work needs to be that we have the tools to be able to respond as quickly as the changes are coming from Trump. He has no regard for the chaos that he's causing, because we feel this is part of his strategy to hurt the Canadian economy and to force us into his vision of annexation to the United States of America, redrawing our borders and access to our water. Well, that's not going to happen. We're going to control our own destiny, and we will never be the 51st state. We're a proud and independent country. We're going to make our own decisions. We're not waiting. We're taking action on all fronts to respond to U.S. threats. Most recently, you will have seen that BC Hydro no longer offers rebates for equipment produced by Tesla, as well as Tesla electric vehicles. We are responding. We've taken all of the alcohol off the shelves in BC. We've issued directions around what to buy to Crown corporations, health authorities across government, and we will do more. We're diversifying our markets. We're leading the conversation on internal trade across Canada, as British Columbia always has. We're continuing that proud tradition of pushing nationally. And we're bringing people together to grow our economy here in BC and grow our Canadian economy, supporting national efforts as well. What is clear is that we are stronger together as a country responding to this threat. Living with the Americans is like the senior Trudeau said, it's like living beside an elephant, sleeping beside an elephant. It's a big, powerful country, and every twitch affects us. And right now, the beast is coming at us full speed. So we got to stick together. In that context, we've introduced legislation today in the House, a bill that we hope will pass with the full support of the legislature. It does a few things. It responds to the escalating nature of the threats that we've seen. Just this week, the U.S. pulled out of our discussions on the future of the Columbia River Treaty. This is a treaty that was signed in 1964 that talks about how British Columbia works with the U.S. to prevent floods, how we share the electrical generation capacity of the massive dams that were constructed, and how we manage the river. The modernization of this treaty to protect salmon, to ensure that we're maximizing the benefit of electricity, but also recreational values in the Kootenays, communities that were very affected when these dams were built. Those discussions were put on pause this week. And so as this happens, and as things continue to escalate with the United States, one thing is clear for British Columbia: we can never leave ourselves again to be in the position of being at the whim of one person in the White House. We have to move faster, and we have to move. We have to be incredibly nimble to respond to the escalating situation. So the legislation that we introduced does those things. It gives us a new tool to respond to the threat of a 25% across-the-board tariff against Canadians and against British Columbians by allowing government to impose tolls on commercial vehicles bringing goods from Washington State through to Alaska. It allows us to ensure we're buying BC and Canadian products, and products, frankly, and services from anywhere else except from the United States for our core government purchases. This reflects about $600 million in annual purchasing, at least. And this gives us the legal authority to direct the Crown corporations and health authorities and all of government to prefer products not from the U.S. and to buy Canadian products. And the third piece that this does is that it gives us the tools to respond in real time to executive orders that target Canada, that target British Columbia. I wish I could say we could predict what the president is going to do next, but I don't think anyone can predict that. I'm not even sure the president can predict what he's going to do next. And so we need to have the tools in place to be able to respond quickly. This is a significant piece of legislation in that it gives regulation-making authority to government that does not require it to go through the legislature immediately. And so given the unique nature of these powers, it's important that there are checks and balances in place, and I'm going to ask the Attorney General to walk you through what those are. One of the things that's really important for me is to underline how important it is and how much we understand the person-to-person relationships that we have across the border with our friends, the American people. I recognize, and we all recognize, that the American people are not the president. These are different things. And I've been receiving many, many letters in my office from Americans who are apologizing for the actions of the president, who are expressing their support for British Columbia and for Canada and their appreciation for our relationship. And they're standing with us. Just today, representatives from the European Union put up a video supporting Canadians. We're seeing that support show up in surprising and wonderful ways. For the Americans, as a gesture and as a reinforcement of what I truly believe, which is that this is one man, this is not Americans, reached out to Governor Ferguson in Washington and invited him to come up to British Columbia. The governor has agreed to come up to visit, to express his support for our relationship, and we're working on dates right now. We can work together despite the trade war that the president has brought to us. We didn't want it. We didn't sign up for it, but we're not going to back down. We're going to fight back, elbows up. And I say that recognizing that my default elbow setting is already pretty high. We're going to make a better future for ourselves. There's nowhere else I'd rather be in the world to face down this threat, and the world is facing the threat from the president, than right here in British Columbia. We've got everything we need to be successful here, and now we have some legislative tools to ensure that we realize that potential and we find a path forward where we stand on our own 2 feet. Thanks very much.
Okay, that's enough. So you got it. Which brings me to this. Let me just take a little break. I'm going to queue up this next thing for you. Sort of related. You're going to want to stick around for it. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, I guess everybody wants to play poker. And J.D. Vance just repeating that, that this whole, they keep coming back to, you don't have the cards. Yeah, he's saying in this interview with Fox tonight that Europe doesn't have the cards. Nobody's got the cards, I guess, except Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Tariffs on Europe. Europe came back to us and said, oh, no, we're gonna hit your whiskey. Trump then says, we're gonna up you. It's like a game of chicken here, trade chicken. 200% on champagnes and wines to France. Now that will destroy the French winemaking business, but they've been really tough on our winemaking industry for years.
Well, that's exactly the point. Look, Europe doesn't have the cards here. As President Trump likes to say, when you have actually penalized American companies and American workers, as the EU has, for years, we're actually fighting back for the first time. But Laura, we have a $1 trillion trade deficit. We absorb
largest
all
ever
the terrible economic policies from all over the world, and the world expects American consumers to foot the bill for their workers and their businesses, and Donald Trump is flipping that on its head. We are not going to do this anymore. We cannot run an economy where Americans borrow, go into debt to buy things that other people make for us. We're going to make it in America. We have to.
Tariffs on Europe.
Yeah, nobody's got the cards. We don't care what sandwich we inflict world. This is stupid. If you trade back and forth, everybody can win. It doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. That's not what trade is about. All right, let's get to this now. Justin Trudeau. Like tomorrow, Carney will be sworn in as the new Prime Minister. I wonder how many people will go back and say, and get back into, you know what, I should probably run this. Nah, never mind. It doesn't matter. It's just repeating what I said earlier about Russia saying they want the ceasefire when they probably really don't, and they're not really, and they making it sound like they do, but they want all these conditions, and so, you know, they'll come back and say, well, we said we wanted it, even though they've they're trying to overlay all these conditions that will make it probably impossible for it to work, and then in the end it's going to fall apart. And they'll blame it on Ukraine and probably Canada, since we're acting just like Ukraine. I'll tell you, it's a very difficult time, and it's dangerous. And there's a lot of lying going on. But I'll tell you this. Somehow we're going to come out of this on the other side, and we're going to make this thing work, and we're going to be okay, and Canada will prevail. Yes, we will. Because we're not alone. And when somebody's bluff ends up being called, we'll see who's really holding the cards in the end. Canada's not done. Justin Trudeau is, though, at least as Prime Minister. It's tomorrow, and this is his farewell address online. He said, hey, Canada, one last thing. And yeah, I know that this is the Prime Minister that many of you love to hate, and I've been in that camp since the pandemic and what he did with the Emergencies Act. But tonight, we're all Canadians, and he's still the Prime Minister. And this is what he wants to say to you. So let's give him his free speech.
I am so proud of Canadians. I'm proud to have served a country full of people who stand up for what's right, rise to every occasion, and always have each other's backs when it matters most. This may be my last day here in this office, but I will always be boldly and unapologetically Canadian. My only ask is that no matter what the world throws at us, you always be the same. I am.
And so we turn the page. Tomorrow. Strange times. What do you want to hear tonight? What do you want me to close off the show with? How about, well, since Trump wants to take over the whole freaking world, how about we go all the way to Mars? Yeah, here it is. Donald Trump, not enough to annex Canada, take over Greenland and Panama, dominate the entire Western Hemisphere, alienate all his friends. He wants to take over Mars, too. And, oh, yeah, let's not forget Gaza. Trump Gaza. He's going to own it and turn it into a resort. Why stop there? Here it is. See you guys tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side. Here's Maverick and the News Brothers with Mega Mars.
He's got a plan, it's bold and grand, taking over land, sea and sand. Canada's ours, Greenland's in the mix, the Panama and now's just another fix. But Mars, oh Mars, you pesky red sphere, your spying drones are making it clear. It's a threat to Earth, a cosmic sin, but don't worry folks, he'll make Mars great again. MAGA Mars, you're the 53rd state. Under Trump, your future is great. With Elon Musk and the Space Force too, we're slapping tariffs on your Martian crew. Make Mars great, yeah, make Mars ours. Wave that flag on the red rock stars. We'll impose sanctions, taxes, and fines. Martian exports, know they're crossing the line. The Martians cry foul, but Trump doesn't care. He'll build a space wall floating up there. Elon's on board with rockets ablaze. The stock market's loving this Martian craze. He says, trust me folks, I know the deal. Martian gold is ours, this plan is real. MAGA Mars, you're the 53rd state. Under Trump, your future is great. With Elon Musk and the Space Force too, we're slapping tariffs on your Martian crew. Make Mars great, yeah, make Mars ours. Wave that flag on the red rock stars. Yeah, Mars hotels with golf resorts, intergalactic trade reports, a MAGA dome where Martians bow. We've got the best Martians, Trump says now. Fake news claims the plan's absurd, but Trump tweets back, it's the final word. Martian drones not on my watch. Space Force ready to kick it up a notch. MAGA Mars, you're the 53rd state. Under Trump, your future is great. With Elon Musk and the Space Force too, we're slapping tariffs on your Martian crew. Make Mars great, yeah, make Mars ours. Wave that flag on the red rock stars. So buckle up for the Martian fight. Trump's taking over the Martian night. It's all for freedom, it's all for the win. Oh, say can you see, he'll make Mars great again. Make Mars great, yeah, make Mars ours. Wave that flag on the red rock stars. So buckle up for the Martian fight. Trump's taking over the Martian night. It's all for freedom, it's all for the win. Oh, say, can you see, he'll make Mars great again.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.